Zoning Board. I'm the chair of the board, Andrew Ellis. To my right is Jason Rainone, followed by Jason Nystrom, Michael Elves, Barrett Holby, and Chuck Thibodeau. I will just a brief reminder, recent state law change. We now only need 4 members for a quorum of the board. There's also a change in that a simple majority of 3 votes in favor will pass a motion as opposed to the previous 4 votes. Mr. Elves is an alternate member. In the event that any hearing is continued, he will still be able to participate. So that if we have to go forward and someone else is not available or has to recuse, that motion or that matter can still be heard. He will be participating in the hearing, but he will not be voting unless specifically, and there will be one case where another member has to recuse, and then he will become a voting member of the board. First matter is to approve the minutes from our previous meeting of January 18th. Is there any discussion or is there a motion on the minutes?
I'll move approval of the minutes as circulated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are now approved. We have no old business on the agenda this evening. Before we dive into the new business, there is one matter that is being withdrawn. That is number 6 on the agenda, application 23-07, Paul Bullock, owner, and Kate Dixon applicant, 277 Water Street, plat 4, lot 95, a special use permit for a retail bakery in the waterfront overlay district. Within the waterfront district, the application first has to go to the planning board and they have to make a recommendation. So that will be removed from the agenda so that they can go through that process. Is there a motion to remove this matter?
Make a motion to move it.
It's actually going to be the April meeting because they have to go to planning next month. So I think because of those reasons, make it a definite date.
All right, so
recommend the April meeting.
Make a motion to move it to the April meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that application has now been moved to April. So starting at the top of the agenda here, under new business, application 23-02, Barnaby Street Realty Trust owner, James Baptista applicant, 58 Barker Ave, plat 13B, lot 84. A request for a special use permit under section 32-131 to add an in-law apartment to an existing structure in the R10 zoning district. The applicant or representative thereof would like to come forward. And if you could please identify your name and address for the stenographer.
Yep, James Baptista, and it's 58 Barker Avenue, Warren 02885.
Right, very good. And just a note on this, for the in-law, the solicitor has advised me that there's nothing here that would necessarily be contrary to new state law for this application. So we can proceed with the requirements that are in the ordinance, with the exception that no deed restriction limiting it to familial relations only isn't applicable. So if you'd like to go ahead and explain what it is you'd like to do and why you'd like a special use permit.
So the lot size, just a little bit background, the lot size is just over 17,000 square feet. The current coverage use is around 2,600. So I'm not expanding that, extending that at all. It's going to remain at 2,600. This is an existing structure on the back side of the garage. And I know Mr. Cabral, he was helpful and he was doing his job. He was trying to do some research to find a map that showed this. And apparently he had a tough time doing that. So I did dig up some paperwork from 1975 in town here that showed that this particular section was actually taxed. Now, talking to some of the elderly locals,
Actually, what?
that this building was actually taxed. It already exists, but it was being taxed in 1975. So after talking to a number of locals, doing some research, apparently that used to be a fish market. And it stands there right now is an empty structure. It's gutted, it's down to the studs, it's space. So all I want to do is take that same space and put an in-law. And I wanted to pull the permits and do it the right way. So the coverage on the lot is not going to change. There was already some plumbing in this space, and I just want to extend on it and remodel it.
All right, so just to be clear, nothing about the actual footprint of this structure is being changed. All the proposed in-law apartment is going to be completely within the existing walls.
Correct.
Okay.
Where, can you show me on here where it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't figure it out.
It's
That little-
right behind the garage.
Oh, just that little section
Yeah,
there.
it's 35 by 15.
No.
Oh, and that's what that is up there.
Correct.
Yeah, if I may.
No, yes,
So essentially, what the applicant is describing, this is there, the structure is there, it's part of the house. It's behind the garage, it's all one structure, so and there may be some confusion, but what he's asking is to take the structure that's there, that there was a fish market there in the 70s, this is a whole new structure there now, it is part of the garage, behind the garage, part of the building, is taking that room, we'll call it, this section behind the garage and turning it into an in-law apartment.
okay,
So it's attached to the house.
Yes, it's part of the house. It's all one unit. There's a single family residence there with a 2-car garage. Behind the 2-car garage is this area that he'd like to make into a in-law apartment.
Okay.
And it's all there. I've been on site. I've been working with the applicant. It's open up right now. It's gutted to the studs. So it's just an open area, and his wish is to make that into an in-law apartment.
And there are 2 means of egress.
Mr. Baptista, in your application, the reason for this is for, it looks like from immediate family visiting from Florida, Arizona, and Utah.
Oh yeah, I have family all over.
Okay, so I guess a question I have, and this will be a lead up to a question I have for the solicitor. So it sounds like there's not going to be one specific family member living there. It's not going to be like grandma's always going to be there. It's just going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be a space that's available for your family as they come and visit you.
Yes, and us too. My wife and I, because we'll have a friend over or whatever, and we'll be occupying the space as well.
Okay. Question I have for the solicitor. A lot of times, and just practically speaking, a lot of times you see in-law apartments for a single agent parent or something like that. Is there any? And I was just looking at the ordinance, and it doesn't make any reference to that. Would there be any sort of issue with having a? Trying to think how to phrase this.
Transient resident.
Transient residents using this as an in-law apartment. Is that going to be an issue, or would that be an issue?
So the new state law just basically says, as the chair said, you can't restrict to a certain family member.
Okay.
What happens here is it becomes an enforcement issue. So the fact somebody comes here before you, presents one thing and treats it as something else, and then that's an enforcement issue to convert that property back into just original structure versus in-law apartment.
All right. So it sounds like then, it's the fact that there's going to be different family members coming in. That's a non-issue.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And also, if I may, so last night at the town council meeting, the ordinance was passed for the short-term rental. So I know there's some questions of people using in-law apartments as short-term rentals. There is a regulation that will be in place. So a person who, has an in-law apartment that attempts to make it into a short-term rental, they won't be able to do that.
They won't be able, so not gonna be the Airbnb little.
No, you can't, it's regulated under our office now. It has to be licensed, inspected. So the issue of if someone tries to do this, we will catch them and rectify the problem. It won't be able to happen in town.
This is not a rental unit, right? It's for your guests and family members. throughout
Correct.
the state.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not going into, the can or the applicant. I just wanted to clarify that one, since it's a little different than what you usually see for an in-law. That's all.
Understood.
Right. Why do they need to make an in-law? Because they're adding a kitchen? Versus just a guest room?
There is going to be a small kitchen.
Is that what makes it?
Well, so yeah, it's essentially, it's going to be its own dwelling unit. So it's not considered, if you had one room, a guest room, but now that you have a kitchen, its own facilities, it's now it now falls under the in-law
Okay.
apartment, so it's separate.
Yeah, if you remember from the Drysdale application.
Yeah, no, I do.
The kitchen made it a separate dwelling unit, that if, once they removed the kitchen facilities, it was no longer a dwelling unit.
Right, so if he wasn't doing a kitchen and he was just basically building another bedroom or room in there with the bathroom, that would be fine, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just.
All right.
To that, actually,
Yes.
to
Other
that
questions?
extent, the family members that would be staying with you, they are independent family members.
Brother, sister.
So they're of an age where they would like to be able to come into town and have a fully functional space to themselves.
And I don't
Not
want to live there with
necessarily-
me.
Yeah.
I don't want
Finding a fact so far.
Are there other specific questions for the applicant at this time?
No.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to offer any commentary on this matter? Don't see any. Do you have any further information you'd like to share about this proposal?
Yeah, I do not. I'm gonna have a question or two for Matt. I don't know if that's like tomorrow, give you a call or whatever, but
You can call my office or call me.
okay.
Any other questions from the board or discussion?
The only other thing, just so you'll know, is even though I'm gonna pull a permit, but I'm hiring all local licensed electricians and plumbers, I'm not,
That's fine.
that matters.
So is there a motion on this application?
I'll move approval of application 23-02 Barnaby Street Realty Trust owner James Baptista applicant, 58 Barker Avenue, plat map 13B, lot 84, request for a special use permit under section 32-131 to build an in-law apartment in the existing structure in an R10 zoning district. In approving this motion, we will note that the application for a special use permit will be compatible with the neighboring land uses. This is a residential area, and the in-law apartment in question will be going into an existing portion of the structure. So there is no expansion of the existing structure to speak of. This special use permit will not create a hazard or a nuisance in the neighborhood. As I have mentioned, we're not expanding the structure. And examination of the structure shows that there is ample off-street parking for the residents of this in-law apartment to be able to put their cars into the property's driveway. And that both the comprehensive community plan and the public convenience and welfare will be served, as this will allow a standing Warren resident the ability to have family close to him without the inconvenience of having them walking through his own kitchen when they find the need to cook themselves dinner.
Okay, I'll just note that a condition would be that all applicable building and fire regulations be observed and be enforced for the construction of this. Are there other conditions or amendments? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so it's passed 5-0. So you can be in touch with the zoning official and coordinate what you need to do.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
The next matter, application 23-03. Joshua and Kimberly, Ontario owner and applicant, 996 Main Street, plat map 15C, lot 27. There's a request for a dimensional variance under section, I think it's supposed to be 32. Is it 32, 2.5 D11? I think this is a typographical error here. To allow a hen house with less than the allowable setbacks in the R10 zoning district. So good evening. You could both identify yourselves with the stenographer, please.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Contario, and
Joshua Contario.
Okay, I'm just going to ask the zoning official, what was the action that led to these individuals needing to come before the board?
So a complaint was filed with the code enforcement for the hen house. The hen house was, I believe, it didn't meet the proper setbacks. So we would advise them that they could come before the Warren zoning board to see if they can get a variance for the hen house as where it is now. It currently is on the property, and they're just awaiting to see the ruling of this board.
So if you could explain what is the situation with this hen house and what you would like us to consider?
so 8 years ago when we got chickens, we put the hen house in a place where we could see it from our kitchen window and as far away from our house and our neighbors' houses as we could. I did not realize when I built it that it needed to be farther away from the property line. I just put it in a place that I thought would be unobtrusive for everybody, but still allow me to see it. Weirdly, we get a lot of wildlife in our yard, even though it's suburban, I guess. So I wanted to be able to see the chickens from my house. And when we built my mom's apartment, her in-law apartment, oddly enough, it's even better because she can see it from the couch where she sits and watches television. So it's in a pretty great location. And it's lived there for 8 years, and we'd just like to leave it there because it's at a good spot.
All right. I think one of the requirements in this notice of violation, it's not supposed to be connected to a fence. From the picture, it looks like, is the fence supporting the back of it, or does the back have?
It is not. I can show you.
So there's
pictures.
independent support in front of the fence that this thing.
It is
resting
right
on.
up against the fence, but the run is supported by the 2x4s that you see, and the coop itself does not touch the fence.
All right, and so the distance, so you need to set this back from the fence. Is this for the accessory structure setbacks? And so is this thing more than 120 square feet?
No, it's the chicken coop itself is 24 square feet.
Is it a permanent structure? Is there a foundation under that thing?
There's not a foundation, no, it's resting on fence, put like on 4x4 fence posts. It would be significantly challenging to move it, just because again, we get a lot of wildlife in the area. I dug around and put down hardware cloth for for their yard that they go in. Their outside access isn't really outside. It's covered on the roof as well, because we have had owls carry away our chickens before. So we had to cover it.
And so what is the size of the outdoor screened in?
The outdoor screened in piece is, I believe it's 10 by 15.
So are we, if it's 10, so are we counting this whole thing as a structure? Or is this outdoor screened in thing not an accessory structure, is it just the hen house?
So the hen house is what we're counting, and the ordinance actually states that the hen house has to be 20 feet from any dwelling unit.
20 feet from a dwelling unit,
Yes,
and is that including their own dwelling unit?
yes.
How
Does
far
that
do you-
include the deck?
It includes the actual dwelling unit.
But I don't know what's that.
So it would be from the back of the in-law, the in-law
Does
addition.
a garage count? I'm just trying to think if we do, please know, if we do have to move it.
Where would it?
Well, it only needs to be 3 feet away from the property line, if it's less than 120 square feet, correct?
I believe there's a special provision.
There's a different provision.
I think yeah, I agree. The 20 feet, I think is also then like it's on top of that. as
Well, it has to meet the setback of the, so at the dwelling unit has to meet the setback. The hen house has to also meet the setback, but not be within 20 feet of a dwelling unit.
That seems to be physically impossible.
That's why they're before you tonight.
That's a physical impossibility.
And unfortunately, the majority of the homes in this town, with the exception of the R40 district, it is pretty much impossible to meet that requirement.
So the hen house has to meet the same setbacks as the primary structure,
That's correct.
but be 20 feet away from the primary structure.
That's correct.
And that's not physically possible.
And like I said,
That's the
unfortunately,
problem.
this came before us in code enforcement. When we looked into it, this is something that, like I said, we all know the cost of egg right now is really high. There are many people who are trying to raise their own chickens for the eggs. There's many people in the town who have a hen house who are in violation, and unfortunately, we have the applicant before you.
Is a hen house something that requires a building permit if someone were to construct it new?
Technically, under the new code, no, because anything under 200 square feet, you don't need a building permit. You do need a zoning
Zoning.
permit. So no, they wouldn't need a building permit, but they would need zoning.
If it didn't fit within the regulations, if the lot was big enough so that it could meet all the regulations, they wouldn't need any zoning relief, but
Yes.
I see.
Question I've got for the applicants. I know you like, and you prefer, from a practical perspective, you prefer to have the coop in its existing location. I'm looking at, could we go to the map, the site? I know. We'll let you know when it's done.
I'm like, oh God, pass it out.
All right, right there, we're good, we're good. Okay, so we heard building inspector say that the coop needs to be on top of the setback, needs to be 20 feet away from the dwelling unit. If you look at the top right corner of the property,
By the garage.
yeah, kind of, yeah, I'll say, yeah, on top of the garage and over a little bit. Would it be possible to put the coop in that area where it maintains both the setback requirement and the 20 feet from a dwelling structure?
Well, is the garage part of the dwelling structure?
Let me put it this way, is the garage, does anybody live in the garage?
Not that I know of, just my car.
All right,
There is, however, a tree,
Like there's trees.
pretty much where you're talking about.
I'm familiar with that part of town, I lived out in.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I think there's also a setback on the right side of the property that we have to also follow.
Because it can't be,
So I think we're back in the same
I'm
position.
still confused about the laws because I tried to read them and I did my best, but.
So there's a dashed line that goes around the building.
But
You're-
there's something about chicken coops in
Yeah.
particular, they can't be by a road.
I don't know about that.
The laws are very.
I think what we're trying to say is-
For a chicken coop.
per the law, the chicken coop would have to be somewhere inside of this
That
dashed
box.
line that is also 20 feet away from the structure.
Does the, yeah, okay. But the garage doesn't count?
It's somewhat ambiguous because the garage is attached to the house.
Yes,
So technically it's one structure. I'm not sure that the law is that specific in. And if the garage was separate, it would be considered an accessory structure, not
But
a
it's-
dwelling,
it's
but it's
completely
connected to the
attached.
house. So it could be a reading that that entire thing is the dwelling unit.
so then there's.
There's literally no
place.
place you could put it.
Was it legal before the in-law was added?
Well, it was not argued with when we got the.
No, I'm just
Like,
asking the.
I
So
don't know.
if I may, there is no place on this property that you can actually fit this chicken coop. And it's gonna fall into all the regulations. It's physically not possible to do this because you have to have the side yard setback, the rear yard setback, plus 20 feet off the dwelling. The dwelling is pretty much at the setbacks right now. So no matter where you put, and it can't be in the front yard, you are correct, you can't have it, and it's gonna either be side or rear yard. So no matter where you put this on this property, it will not meet the ordinance that we have for setbacks.
Because we don't have side yard, because it's a corner lot, there's no, like. I tried.
What you're saying is they need a variance no matter what, or there's no chicken coop.
Let's say the rear yard setback's 35 feet from the rear yard property line to the dwelling. You would need 55 feet. Because you'd have to go 35 to this dwelling and then another 20 to the dwelling. So you would need the 55 feet at minimum on the rear yard. So there's no way that right now you could say, put this chicken coop anywhere and it's gonna meet, it will not meet anywhere on this property. So they need a dimensional variance from this board to say that we're gonna give you a variance on the setbacks for the coop.
What have the complaints been exactly? Have there been noise complaints from the roosters cackling in the morning or?
Roosters and
There was a mention of rats in the violation.
Rats?
That's what it said in
Yeah,
the
it's like
violation.
over 6 fowl and rats in the area.
So if you move it, it's not gonna change that. Unless they can do some other better job or put some rat traps out. How many chickens do you have?
I currently have 13.
So there's a problem because you're only allowed to have 6, right?
That's another thing that
This
we're
is another
talking
thing
with.
with the law.
Housing,
Was
yeah.
is very confusing. It says that you can have 6, but then you can have more if you have enough property. But it was,
It's
we were told that that's not true. We were told to come to housing court because we had more than 6 chickens. And then we found out at housing court that it was actually because it was too close to the property line. I'm just trying to keep my chickens. And I really would rather not lift up my hurricane-proof chicken coop and move it to a different location.
I think part of this came up as well because over the summer, Kim was fixing up the coop to make it more secure, actually reduced the size of the run and enclosed it. And I believe our neighbors misunderstood that as us expanding what we were having instead of actually shrinking it and trying to prevent the rats and other rodents from in.
Tried to make it fairly bulletproof.
If I can ask the solicitor, there is a mention here in the code quotation. Keeping of more than 6 fowl on any house lot requires an additional 800 square feet of yard space dedicated to each additional fowl.
Which we.
So is that?
Based on our pretty size, but
That was the confusion. That's what we assumed. We had enough space in our backyard
to have.
to
Right.
accommodate
So
that.
you need
that
8 times
But,
7, you need
yeah.
5,600 extra square feet.
But my question is in addition to what?
That's also a good question.
I'm almost wondering if the number of birds is immaterial, because I think, I think the only question in front of us really is, can they have the coop? You know, and can
What
they,
can I have in the location? It's
precisely, and I think the number of birds, I think that may be a housing court issue. Correct, I mean, I'm not.
That is what we were told, is to come here first and then we'll resolve the other issue in housing court.
I mean, we've already lost 2 chickens since we were at housing court. So if it takes a couple more months, our old ladies would be over the Rainbow Bridge.
Andrew can make salt,
Fine.
so.
It's, you know, it's like they don't have a very long lifespan. And like I said, we have a lot of,
Should,
So I would, sorry,
Hmm?
just to give you a quick answer. If you go back to A basically said the owner of any house, lot, in any residential zone, except the residential R40 zone contains at least one dwelling may keep or permitted to keep on the house lot no more than 6 fowl. So basically, if your lot is larger than R40, then 800 square feet becomes effective. In other words, she's only allowed 6.
okay.
I understand, because she
Oh,
has
I see.
R40, so I think you have to look at A first.
Our interpretation, because it was not a subsection of A, that it was a separate,
Yeah, I believe that was the intent when they created this,
was it should have been a subsection.
possibly, but that's the intent.
Okay, well,
That may be a question for the housing. judge.
right, as a non-lawyer, as a civilian, I took that and Kim took that to mean
Should we,
that's separate.
Scott, what do you want?
should we, before, I mean, we're going around in circles here. Should we ask if there's any other public comment to
Yeah, we can.
figure out,
Yes. All right, why don't we?
to hash this out one way or the other?
Is anyone in the public inclined to offer any commentary on this application? Yes, sir. So if you two want to just sit to the side for a moment. So you come up to the podium and please identify your name and address so the stenographer can record that.
Good evening, my name is Mark Weiss.
Yeah,
I live at 12 Truman Avenue, this house be on the structure right there.
so this is behind the fence,
Yeah, the house that you're looking at.
the house we can see in the back. Okay.
So, don't want to affect anyone's pets, but at the end of the day, in the last year, we've incurred an $800+ bill from pest control. And every time it requires multiple visits from New England Pest Control. And every time they come out, they say, you're gonna continue to have this bill as long as that chicken coop is there. And so, really, it's a matter of vermin being attracted to chickens, eggs, and chicken poop. Not much you can do about that when you have a chicken coop, and so moving it, 400 or 500 feet away from its original spot isn't going to stop that attraction, and that's my biggest concern.
What kind of rodents are you showing?
Rats,
It is just rats.
just rats.
Has it been all continuous or just recent?
So that we noticed, so I physically saw them last year, and we've had New England Pest Control out, and they've put out traps. Starting, I want to say it started midsummer. They were putting out traps, and they were noticing that they had activity in their bait traps. And so I believe you said that they've seen a couple dead ones on their dwelling as well. And I'm almost positive because I actually went up to them to tell them that, hey, we're baiting, and just because they have a dog as well, I don't want their dog to eat one of the rats and suffer the same fate as their rat does by eating that bait. And that's what drove me to.
And how long have you lived there?
We've lived there now 16+ years.
Okay, so you've been, so I'm just gonna ask this question because I live at 605 Main Street
Yep.
and we got a rat problem right after heavy road construction. Was there any road digging a hole?
No.
Uptown got
Not that I'm aware of.
flooded. Okay, I'm just asking the question because about
Could've been.
3 or 4 years ago, when they were doing gas lines uptown,
Right,
everybody ended up with a massive rat problem in there.
okay.
So I just was wondering if they were doing any utility work out there at all.
And I don't know if we've had a rat issue before then. I didn't see signs of rats before
You
then.
probably
I
would have.
didn't know that. I didn't contact anyone until I actually physically saw a rat. And so we were feeding birds at the time. And that's where I saw them, under our bird feeder. We've since, right after that, we took all the food away, and we were still showing signs of rat population.
But they get
Last-
physically into your property, or are they
I'm
just,
sorry,
are they getting physically into your house, or are they just?
they're not coming into the dwelling,
Yeah.
but there is signs that they're coming right across the backyard. We found burrow holes. We've also seen burrows dug under this fence line that you see here. So that's all I have.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak with regard to this matter? Yes, madam? Nope, please come forward so we can hear you.
I lived there for 30 years.
Well, so who,
Hold on, you have.
Okay. Raina Whitty,
yes,
26 Truman,
okay,
Rio. We have a cat that gets loose and he's outside. I guess our real question is, can it be clean? Can it be clean so that you don't smell it when you walk by? You don't know that they're there. Keep the structure lower than the fence. I'm just asking, can it be cleaned up? We don't want rats.
So-
Nobody wants rats.
Miss Whitty, okay, let me ask you this, again, I live down in that area, down in that end of town, not on Truman, but, in the years that you've lived at your address, have you noticed anything, in relation to the scoop? Have you smelled anything directly tied to the chickens?
Again, only in the last year and a half.
And is that as long as you've been there?
Oh, I've been there for 30 years.
Okay.
And you've had the coop for how long? And
Okay.
the first 7 years, not including the year and a half you had a problem, did you have less chickens? You always had the 13?
It's between 8 to 16 and then back again. Like I said. we
Let's keep
have
the
a
yard
fair
clean.
amount of Attrition.
Have you specifically seen rats?
No,
Okay. Have you seen any evidence of rats?
no.
Okay, and I'm
We
just.
have mice. We have mice, but everybody has mice.
I know.
Yeah, and we have woodchucks and all kinds of animals, but most of us have fenced in yards.
Okay.
So we're just saying, keep it in your fence. Thank you.
anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this application? All right, I'm not seeing anyone else in the public. Bring it back to the board here. The question of whether or not they can have a chicken coop isn't really for us to decide, right? Because if they meet all the regulations, you can have it by right, you can have a chicken coop. It's not this board's decision whether or not you have a coop, but it is this board's decision on where that coop can be located on the property. And if we feel that there is a location that is suitable and justified for it, we could direct them that that's where it needs to be located. Otherwise, we can simply say that they need to follow the ordinance for the setbacks. And if that means it's physically impossible on this property, then that's what it means. So the question is there some amount of relief from the setbacks that the board finds appropriate to allow this chicken coop to be on the property that we feel would be in harmony with the spirit of the ordinance?
Just speaking impression wise, and I had to have my mind made up, Mr. Chair. We've dealt with this with some of the issues on Tuisset, that, the part in the matter of the zoning regulations for, the health, safety and well-being. I've got some concerns that if there are some rodents, and I'm hearing some concerns from abutting landowner or abutters or people in the area, that this is starting to be an issue. I do have some concerns, and it does it based on the testimony we've heard from Mr. Weiss and Ms. Whitty. It seems like the main complaints started maybe about a year and a half ago. So I don't know if some sort of intervening event happened in that meantime, but that's something I'm grappling with. And I'm wondering if I understand what the building official has indicated, as well as the applicants, that there's nowhere you can put this coop with it meeting the setbacks. I'm wondering if there is a better spot to put the coops so that the applicants can have their chickens, and maybe it's in a different area.
Yeah, there is, I think there is, if we don't consider the garage part of the dwelling, if we limit our definition of dwelling to the actual house that people would inhabit, there is an area, I think, in this corner of the property that would be 20 feet from the nearest corner of the house and within the setbacks. So I think it may be physically possible, or it would just depend on how we define dwelling.
Yeah, and I will say, looking at the site plan, the bottom is Main Street. So we see the bituminous sidewalk, the concrete curb, that's Main Street. And then on the right-hand side of the photograph, that would be Truman. So this is a corner. Yep. So this is a corner lot. So I do think that there is the opportunity here that if there's going to be a coop, there may be an opportunity to have it placed in an area that's, kind of furthest away from and all the properties in the area.
What about is that our jurisdiction? You said they were getting a smell, the rats and the height of the coop.
I have a feeling that, at least as far as the smell and cleanliness, that may be an enforcement issue. I mean, I'm sure we can make a stipulation that the coop gets kept clean, but we're not.
That's very nice.
I'm also inclined to think that if we do decide that it needs to move to that location that's the most likely to meet all of the setback requirements, the process of shifting the location of the coop will also necessitate any functional cleanup associated with the current location of the coop, which may also mitigate any of the rodent problems, because any buildup that exists in the current coop location is ultimately going to end up either going away or not being as attractive because the chickens will have moved. We're talking about a coop that's existed for 8 years and it's only been a problem for a year and a half.
Yeah, and my question is, why has that been a problem for a year and a half as opposed to previous 6.5 years or the first 6.5 years? What's changed?
Want to bring him back up?
You come to the mic.
Go back to the mic.
That's okay.
It's okay. I mean, we've had literally no change.
Is there more chickens now?
No, there's not. I mean, my mom started a garden and she was also feeding birds. So we stopped with the songbird feeding. When my neighbor said there was an issue, we took down those. So I don't know why. I mean, it was an extraordinarily hot summer is the only thing that I could think about with smell. It was brutal. And the reason that I wanted to redo the roof line, which it's not any taller than it was before. It's just not a peaked roof, and it was a peaked roof before. And my older chickens were sleeping in the rafters and falling out and getting injured. And so because I'm a sap, I rebuilt the top of the chicken coop, and I changed the yard to be a little bit taller so my mom doesn't have to stoop when she goes in to, give them their treats. Makes us sound like real hippies, and I recognize that, but like my mom is 76, it brings her a lot of joy, and I'm just trying to like I know people are saying, well, eggs are expensive. Like, literally it keeps my mom happy, and I'm just trying to do the right thing. And I am completely sympathetic that we have rats, but I also was reading in the New York Times that rats are a problem everywhere now. And I'm like, I don't think they're just because of my chickens. I think there's something global happening.
So is there some sort of additional means of like rat proofing this area that, a denser wire mesh in the ground or something that would prevent the rats
So,
from getting
If you can go
into
back
the
to the
coop?
picture, I was in mid restoration at this point when I was doing, when this picture was taken. It's since been, it doesn't look like this now anymore, but around the edge, you see that there's rolls of hardware cloth, and the hardware cloth comes out 18 inches from the bottom of the run. The coop is entirely raised up, so there's 18 inches underneath that, and it's completely sealed in with 1/2 inch to sometimes 1/4 inch hardware cloth. So even the door and the ceiling is the roof on on the yard is also chicken wire because it's not rats or coming through the top, it's birds that go through the top. So things that I could do to make it better. I mean, it's cleaned out frequently. So I don't know why it smelled more last year than it did before, but I could dig up underneath the run and put hardware cloth on the bottom so they couldn't.
Well, that's, I'm thinking the tunneling problem, just because
Right,
hardware
that's-
cloth goes out, they could still go up.
They-
And also burying it, putting it a few
Burying
feet
it
downstream.
down, I can also do that, because as you can see on the map, it's not a huge property, so and rats are notoriously brilliant. So, like, I'm concerned that we could move it and it would take all of my energy, because I'm a school teacher, to move it over the summer. And then we would still end up having the same issues, but if I could put those efforts towards making this even more bomb-proof or rat-proof, that might solve the problem better than putting my energy moving into a different location.
Is it your opinion that if you did move it to a different location, the problem would basically still exist, wouldn't it?
I mean, rats are like, it's not like they're not gonna go 20 feet down the side of, I don't have 400 feet of property to put anywhere, like all of our vermin were more challenging this year. Like, I don't even know if it's legal, but I relocated 2 groundhogs this summer. Like, there's like so many. You would think that my mom is a Disney princess with the amount of wildlife we get in my backyard. So it just seems like it's been worse this year than any other time. But I do not know that the location of the coop is the issue. I think the existence of the coop is the issue, and I would really rather not give away my chickens because we've had them for 8 years and raised them since chicks, and they're essentially my pets. So it would be really sad if I had to get rid of it.
Well, and it's also a big hobby for
My mom.
her mother, and it's right outside her door, and not to make a sob story out of it, but it does significantly add to her life. If we moved it across the way, it would impact.
Do you personally do rat mitigation yourself?
We did traps. I didn't, for the reasons that my neighbor mentioned, I wasn't using poison because there's so many other animals and I've seen so many other birds in my yard. I don't want to disrupt that population. So I just use traps.
Have you
Would,
bought any?
would we have the ability to make a condition that they have to engage the monthly services of a licensed pest control?
I mean, I've always wanted to hire Big Blue Bug for
Something.
something, just 'cause it's like iconic. I'll drink my coffee milk when I do.
Yeah, because the only concern I've got is, and I understand all the reasons why you want to have chickens. In asking us for a variance, we also have to look at the surrounding area, and it's a big concern for me personally is, when somebody engages in something, and if by however that happens, whether it's smell, animals, whatever goes to the property of another, that's an issue we have to grapple with.
Completely.
Yeah, I completely understand that. As you pointed out, however, there will be numerous people within this town who would then be not following the ordinance, and
We may be quite busier than the months.
we can find a better solution. I think.
Solicitor wants to weigh in on something.
Mr. Chair, go to your question about
Yeah.
conditions.
Conditions.
Section 32-30. In granting a special use permit, the board may prescribe such conditions and safeguards as step back screening and other requirements as it may deem necessary to prevent nuisance to promote harmony to the nearby property. So the answer is yes.
Well, but this is not a special use permit.
It's dimensional.
It's a dimensional variance. So what
However,
kind of conditions?
As
may-
you know, a standard is not creating nuisance, correct?
I mean, I would not like get a lawyer and get mad at the town if you said I could keep my chickens. I just needed to hire, someone to come and do our best with the rats.
The question I have for the applicants, again, not being a burger myself, as much as I do love eggs. And if this sounds ignorant, my apologies. How often do you have to clean the coop?
So during winter, we do something called deep litter, which compost inside the coop that provides some warmth for the chicken because it's not a heated structure. During the summertime, I would say we clean it out roughly every 6 to 8 weeks. Depends on how, like if we can smell it,
Summer.
we clean it out. So we put a lot of pine shavings in there to keep the smell down, but it's like a linoleum floor on the bottom, so it's really easy to clean it out. It's really good compost, what they put in there, so usually we're putting that.
So
Could we mandate
say-
a certain interval of
you
cleaning?
may anticipate where I'm coming.
Yeah.
If there's a concern by the neighbors about kind of keeping the cleanliness of the property up. Would this, would you be amenable to if we gave a condition where you had to kind of clean the coop out every other week, every 3 weeks?
Sure.
Sounds reasonable. I would ask, however, what can we do with the compost?
Compost?
Well, because if the chicken poop is the problem, that the rats like it, then finding a suitable place for that on the property.
So what do you do with the guano and the leftovers now?
I put them in a compost and I put them in my mom's garden.
Okay, do you have a
That's the problem.
where's your compost bin or pit?
We just literally put it in my mom's garden.
Okay,
So
Now, have you
maybe-
been doing that all 8 years?
No, because she didn't live here all 8 years and have the garden.
So how long have you had it for?
We've put it different places around the property, just like, whatever it looks like.
So
it
what
needed
about-
more grass.
What about putting it in an enclosed compost container that once it has composted and then it's suitable to use in your yard, that while it's going through that process, could it be stored in
My
a
only,
compost
We
receptacle?
talked about that.
we
Yeah,
have, but
possible.
my only concern is that compost, like enclosed compost bins are kind of small. And this is like a 24 square foot coop, it's like
Right.
3
We'll
inches
get
of
building.
litter.
I mean, when you clear, I mean, when you clean it out from the coop,
It's like 2 to 3 wheelbarrows full. So like, if you think about what one of those composters is, it's like,
so there's 2 to 3 wheelbarrows full in a 24 square foot
yeah. If you-
hen house.
Yeah, because if you have, they might need a nice cush spot. So like.
It's not all.
It's pine, what is it? Pine needle?
It's pine shavings.
Pine
Yeah, Pine
shavings.
shavings, sometimes straw if they're feeling bored,
yeah.
because they like to peck in it.
So it's not all. It's all.
It's not 3 inches straight of poop, no, because
It's
there's litter.
3 inches of material.
Yeah, it's material, yeah, like 3 inches, you can imagine like, for a 24 square foot coop, it's like not a small amount, is my point. So we could build a composter, but it would be a lot easier for it, like, I don't even know if they make, like the barrel style, if we would go
Mhm.
through that, especially if I'm cleaning it out every 3 weeks. That's a lot of material.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
In addition, I know the number of animals or birds on the property is a question. And maybe a different interpretation, what condition could be to follow the 6, maximum of 6, therefore reducing the amount of waste from these,
Yeah.
from the thing. That could be a condition again, just to maybe help with the amount.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Really
I'm
good
wondering if
places.
the problem with the rats is not so much the coop itself, but once you clear out that compost material, if it's being placed elsewhere in the yard, is that what's actually attracting rats?
I mean, again, I've done this the same way basically for 8 years, so I can't get into the mind of a rat.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I think we're going down a whole different road here with this applicant. My office, we can work with them on the composting, that we actually have measures in place that we can work with them as to what they need to do for composting. And like the solicitor said, they are in housing court right now. This case is in housing court, so I don't want to speak for the court, but I would believe that they are gonna want us to enforce the number of chickens that are on the property. So the matter at hand is, can they have this hen house, and where is it going to be in the property? All these other questions that have been asked here, we can look at that under code enforcement, but I just don't want to. It seems like we're just kind of going down a whole different.
Yeah,
So you-
I'm not
I agree,
convinced.
we're trying to get comfortable with what to do.
Yeah, I know, because I'm not against anyone having a chicken coop, but I'm not okay with the chicken coop if this could be causing issues, in the area. And I think, and I understand what you're saying, Matt. It's a fine line. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole either. But also in my mind, if we're going to allow this coop to exist, I need to be comfortable that it's not going to be a hazard.
I'm just not sure the location of the coop is gonna make any difference one way or the other to the problems that have been raised. I
We
think
had,
just the fact that it's there is what's creating the problem. Whether we move it closer to the garage or here or there or somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's necessarily solving the problem. The only thing we could do is say, okay, if you have to put it within the setbacks, and at least you're compliant with zoning, and whatever happens with other complaints, that's the housing court's problem, but at least we've forced you to be compliant with the regulations.
So we've already established that can't.
Well, no, I think
they could go to the other corner.
if we don't count the garage as a dwelling, right, there is sort of an L-shaped area in this corner where you could theoretically construct something.
How much space you have with the trees in there? Do you have enough space to put a?
I'm sure I could make it work if I had to.
No, when I hear what the chair is saying, it sounds like really,
But if that doesn't make any difference, should we
yeah.
Well,
make it, allow the chicken coop to stay where it is, limit it to 6 chickens, or let them die off to 6 chickens, and then require them to have the big blue bug people come out once every 4 weeks in the summer or something, and have them clean the coop out once every 2 or 3 weeks. And see what happens. Maybe maybe that will help make it go away. And I think Mr. Al said that he even has seen some rats because this year was a big year for rats.
I had one.
It was
in my
dry.
house, yeah, which I never had in my life, but that was because they cleared the lot down the road.
That's definitely, but
I'm
there's
wondering
also a severe drought and the rats were looking for water, or that they needed a source, there's no water around.
But it's severe,
We've never seen.
severe drought is also gonna bring more smells and stuff because nothing's washing away. And we did have a big drought. last
There was a severe.
They were actually, we did see rats occasionally trying to drink water. from
Yes.
the-
Yeah, because there's no.
Close to water.
Whenever there's a severe drought, all sorts of wildlife looks for other opportunities to how to find water, and then they come out of the woodwork, so to speak.
So Mr. Solicitor, the building official just stated, do we have the authorization over the housing authority to say that we go down to 6 and have them also do?
Well, 6.
I think both things can run parallel. However, I would recommend that this board just focus on the zoning aspect of it in terms of the location and the standards that we have to follow. I can't say that the ordinance is very thorough, as Matt stated. There's nuisance section, there's smell section, there's all types of sections that we can address all the issues that were raised tonight. Therefore, my recommendation is, again, look at this place, look at the location of it, and whether or not it fits the standards.
It was technically the nuisance or hazard is only for a special use permit, dimensional variance. Now
Mr. Dobson, just to answer you, certainly can put those conditions in place to minimize any type of nuisance in the neighborhood as the comp plan is. Neighbors have to be harmonious with one another, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, that would fall under standard 3 of the variance, that what they're doing is not going to alter the character of the surrounding area. So if it's creating smells and problems, that could alter the character of the surrounding area or impair the ordinance or comprehensive plan. And obviously the main intent of it is to preserve health, safety, and welfare of the public. So and I think we have leeway there to do that. Because the question is there any merit in us moving the location of the coop or setting some kind of dimensions other than where it currently is? Another thought would be, and we have done this on occasion in the past, if we were to make some sort of finding that have a sunset clause on it that, try this for 9 months, a year, whatever it is. And that's how long the approval is good for, and then come back to us. And if there's still a problem, then we make some other funding. Like we did with the noise problem with the,
Did they ever come back?
they came back once, they didn't come back the second time.
So we, okay.
We never re-reviewed that.
Yeah, I heard you here saying, Mr. Chair, like in some ways. About moving it, I think, I agree with you. I think if the garage is not counted as a part of the dwelling, there's some merit to moving. I just don't know if moving it's gonna
Yeah, I'm not,
do anything.
not convinced it's gonna solve the problem the neighbors have raised. I don't think the neighbors are necessarily complaining about
Where it
technically the
is.
location of it. It's the resultant issues arising from it being on the property at all.
Yeah. To the applicants, have you heard anything from Elizabeth O'Donnell, the abutter right to the north of your property?
No, sir.
No, okay. And and just so I'm understanding your site plan correctly, essentially the whole back part of your area is fenced in. So it looks like you've got 6-foot stockade fence.
Everything's fenced.
Okay. Do you ever let the chickens out in the front yard? Or they ever get loose?
God, no,
That's
it's
right.
Main Street.
I know, just.
We have let them out in the backyard, and if that is a problem, then we could not
To
do so.
like chill out in the free range in the backyard to get them some.
They're very good
exercise.
at eating bugs and ants.
They love ticks. It's really
For what
nice.
it's
to have
worth.
ticks in the yard.
Yeah.
Can roll around in the grass and play.
I don't think that's the actual problem that they'll let them out occasionally.
No.
Yeah, I don't think that's really.
No, even when we keep them penned in, the previous, I made it more secure, but they used to jump into Mark's yard. They would dig under the fence, so that's why I put that wall back there to keep them from going down. So now they can't escape.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm liking the idea of maybe doing a sunset review, given the issues. I think, it's something I certainly understand, and give a lot of weight to the abutters and the other individuals. And that's a real concern. Nobody wants rats coming to the yard, and if there's smells wafting, that's a big deal.
Because we could certainly make conditions on
Yeah.
it staying where it is. But conditions such as more frequent cleaning or pest.
Routine pest
control,
maintenance. clean
Something
it
of
up,
that
yeah.
nature, and if we gave them 9 months, that would get us through the summer. When that seems to be when the majority of the problem was occurring. And then they could come back. And we could
Mitigation's
review.
made a difference.
That's something I'd be comfortable with, I think,
And we could certainly work with Mr. Cabral to alleviate any issues with the smell or the pest control or anything else. We want to be good neighbors too.
Have you noticed any issues with rats in the front yard on Main Street?
Don't
Any wildlife?
know, but I don't.
Spend a whole lot of time looking in my yard on Main Street. Just gonna be completely honest.
So this is.
So I don't know.
So this is gonna come out and I'm gonna be the first one to say, I don't always mow my lawn as often as I would like. However, that may, if you keep the front yard tame, that may help things out.
Mm.
If you know what I mean, I'm not.
Yep. No, absolutely. No, that's a good point. And that could also be part of our plan.
Okay.
And there may need to be more extensive rat proofing with the hardware cloth, whether it goes vertically or a
Underneath.
larger area
So you
horizontal.
do like a bathtub of it.
Yeah.
I could do a bathtub kind of thing of hardware cloth underneath it, and, then they wouldn't be able to come up through the bottom.
Yeah, I think that may
That's
be.
really smart. It's very hard. I feel inadequate at times to take on vermin. So,
But, well, yeah, let's work with the town to resolve the rat problem, and we can come back in if it's 9 months to see how it's going.
And it's in their best interest to make their neighbors happy and do this,
Absolutely.
so.
yeah, I mean, of course, in general.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
no, that's.
No, we're taking it seriously. The last summer was a bad summer. And again, we have not seen anything like this since we had the coop.
Yeah, so I think, the ideas of more frequent maintenance of the cleaning, prescribed intervals of professional pest control, additional rat proofing, I'll come to you in one moment, additional rat proofing measures that you want to implement to limit the pathway that's coming into the property. The composting aspect I have concerns about, because if we install the additional rat proofing and they can't physically penetrate into the thing, that may help. But wherever you're dumping this compost, I mean, the rats have free access to it.
Well, and there's no, so don't know this for sure, but is there an ordinance about where I can put a compost pile?
Or can we work with
Could I-
Mr. Cabral to figure that out?
Because then we can put the compost pile like in the, by the driveway.
Well, I think if it's exposed to the air, I mean, the rats are gonna find it. Right, if you just dump the compost in a different area, it's not gonna solve the problems, because the rats will smell it and will go to it. If the compost is in a legitimate enclosed composting barrel or something, and maybe that means that you can only put a portion of that into the composting barrel and the rest of it has to be disposed of in the trash.
Right,
Mhm.
so it would just go in the yard pickup, yard waste pickup.
If that's where it goes, I mean, we're not sure,
I don't know about
but there may only be a
So they-
limited.
things I would never thought I'd have to think about.
There may be a limited quantity that can be composted on site within the confines of a compost barrel or compost system that's enclosed. And if it can't fit in there, then that has to be disposed of in the trash or yard waste or whatever the appropriate disposal is, but it has to be removed from the site.
From the property, yeah, that makes sense.
My guess is that putting it in the gardens and all that was probably working under normal years when the rain came in and washed it all through.
Could be.
The last summer was
It was so.
so dry that it was just sitting there.
You know, and once the composting process has occurred within the barrel, it's no longer,
Right.
it's no longer the
the
initial
soil.
product.
It's not attractive.
It's soil with that.
Right. But it wasn't even getting washed out. So they were putting it in their gardens, just putting it in there. It wasn't even washing down. It was just sitting on top. Creating a smell, attracting rats. I think you got a combination of a perfect storm here too.
Yeah, hold on. If you have a comment that's specific
So,
and
yeah, I
not
would
general,
move that, either A, eliminating composting altogether and take it to the dump. Or B, compost, like you said, smaller amounts and get rid of the rest. If that's the issue, if we're composting 100% of that chicken waste, regardless if it's straw, whatever the material, filler material, it's still saturated with that stuff.
so perhaps the condition is that the composting can only occur on site within a fully enclosed composting container or system, and if it doesn't fit in there, then it needs to be disposed of off-site.
We're just, taking it to the dump is a great idea.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so I will, if we can, we will work with the applicant, the neighbors. I think the 9-month clause would be sufficient. We can revisit this after 9 months, but we'll work to go and see if it is the composting, how they can either remove it from the facility or get the proper containment structures for this. I think that we have multiple things going on here, and none of us here are experts on vermin. So I think we should just see how this would work if we're going to leave the structure where it is, and then they can work on the cleanliness and then revisit this to see if it works, and if it doesn't, like I said as well, with the number of chickens are going to have to be reduced because they don't meet the ordinance. That's one thing that has to, that's clear cut. So like I said, we'll work with everybody. We'll work with the neighbors. We'll work with the applicant to hopefully see that whatever the mitigation works over the 9-month period.
So is the board generally inclined then not to force the relocation of the coop at the present time?
I would agree with that. Leave it where it is.
And we will impose conditions that are designed to potentially mitigate the issues, and we'll revisit it in 9 months' time.
Makes sense to me. Yep.
All right, so is there anything else you want to add, or Chuck, do you have anything else you want to say?
I'll make a motion. I'll try to make a motion if you guys are
All
ready.
right,
Have fun with this one.
I'm gonna need a lot of help, people.
Request,
what would that be?
if we could just not make it 9 months, Because if you count to 9 months, that puts us right at Thanksgiving, and the reason this has taken so long is because all of this happened. There was Thanksgiving and then the Christmas meeting, and it was super complicated, so
You want 8 months?
You want to go to like September or October?
8 months or like 12 months, but
I don't want to
like,
go 12.
that's fine.
I
just-
want to
I'm
get
just
through
saying-
the summer.
Okay.
You wanna
so
do
8 months would
October?
Put us the end of October, and
So-
that's a lot less stressful.
So
for
what about,
everybody.
they have to come back at the October meeting?
What's that date?
I mean, it's gonna be this Wednesday.
You got,
We've got it here, the 18th of October.
Perfect. It's not. Perfect.
All right, so we'll have them report back. All right, so with that, then is the Chuck, would you like to attempt to make,
and feel free to add because this is,
go,
I'm way out of my comfort zone. on this.
go for it, and then we can make additions as.
I make a motion to approve application 23-03 Joshua and Kimberly Cotero, owner and applicant, 996 Main Street, plat map 15C, lot 27, request for a dimensional variance under section 3-2.5 D11 to allow a hen house with less than the allowable setbacks in an R10 zoning district. Should we say allowing them to leave it in the
Well, there
existing,
were, yes, you can say that,
to leave,
you can say that along with the, you know, the points that it has to meet. The why, that the relief,
okay,
you know, state what the relief that we're prepared to offer them is that it stays within its current location, which is that house. You have the four things in for the.
I know, but I didn't bring a sheet, because I didn't have one. I've got the points. The hardship is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land of
And
the.
that could be because of the size of the property.
Because of the size of the property. It does not allow them to have this, what is it, 20-foot setback? From the structure?
Supposedly from the dwelling, from the dwelling structure and then within the regular setbacks. That the configuration, say the configuration of the property is such that, it would impose a physical limitation on, the space available to locate this coop.
Can we go into the,
What's the next? Go to the next one.
it's not the result of any prior actions of the applicant.
No, the lot, so
The lot-
the lot's existing,
the
right?
lot's
The house is
existing.
existing, the setbacks are existing.
Granting the variance will not alter the general characteristics of the surrounding area.
Because, and we're gonna give them conditions.
Correct. Do we want to list the conditions here or do we want to?
Yeah, we can say in order not to alter the conditions or in order not to alter the character of the surrounding area, the following conditions will be imposed.
We will move to more frequent cleanings of the pen. Do we want to?
Let's give them how many number of weeks did you want them to
Say
clean?
every 3 weeks.
Every 3 weeks?
Cleaning out of the bedding compost material.
What was the maximum number of chickens they can have? Is it 6? So reducing them down to 6 chickens, I guess, through attrition,
Attrition would be
By
appreciated.
by attrition.
By attrition.
Using a licensed pest control to try to monthly to try to mitigate the rat issue.
Installation of more robust rat proofing measures. You can work with the building official on what that is gonna be, aardwork cloth, et cetera.
Compounding on the site would be within an enclosed compounding structure. Do we want to put a limit on that?
It's, I don't think that, as long as it's fully enclosed, whatever size barrel or whatever it is, it just needs to be fully enclosed, you know, a legitimate composting system. And whatever doesn't fit in that system has to be disposed of off-site.
And then we will do a sunset review clause on October 18th, 2023 meeting.
Yeah, but you have to come back and we will re-review this and determine if further steps are required.
One small question.
Yes,
We have a large number of abutters because of Baggy Wrinkle Cove and Oyster Point. So in order to let everybody know, we had spent $440 to notify all of our neighbors, which felt like a lot. Will we also have to do a mailing?
So
for that?
because the board will vote on a motion to continue this for review,
Would it be the same, but we don't have to?
because they're making a date certain, notice is sufficient already.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Yeah, any more? Feel free to add. This is a really interesting one.
Just like during the pendency, the applicants will be compliant with any applicable health, safety, and municipal regulations.
It's
Ordinances.
included in the ordinance, correct?
Yeah.
And we will also add that, as a finding of fact, that if this variance were not to be granted, it would constitute more than a mere inconvenience in that, any consideration to relocating the coop, would be a significant outlay of effort without any guarantee that it would in and of itself correct any of the problems being experienced by the abutters.
Other conditions? Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so the motion is approved 5-0 to leave the group in its present location for a period not to exceed the 18th of October, and you will need to work on getting these conditions implemented. You can get them.
Got you. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Appreciate
And,
it.
Mr. Cavallo.
and hopefully, hopefully it's a better summer,
Summer,
and not
more-
a drought. Yeah, it's clear. It's the 18th of October. All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Need a farm.
I know.
These issues wouldn't be an issue.
All right. Next, application 23-04. Thomas and Sandra Marston, owner and applicant, 58 Shore Drive, plat 17, lot 51. The request for a dimensional variance under 3277 to construct an addition to the residence with less than the allowable front and rear setbacks and more than the allowable lot coverage in the residential village overlay zoning district. Good evening, sir. If you can identify yourself and your address, please.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse. myself.
Okay, very good. Mr. Holby is recusing, so Mr. Elves is now a voting member of the board.
My name is Thomas Marston. I live at 58 Shore Drive in Rhode Island, 2885.
Very good. So, Mr. Marston, if you could give us a brief overview of what it is you're proposing to do and why you feel there's a need to have relief from the setbacks and the lot coverage.
So we'll try to keep this as clear as possible. But as you know, the setback regulations are a rectangle and we have a square lot. By the rule, the front of this property is supposed to be Shore Drive because that's the legal mailing address. And so we are already highly non-conforming because the rectangle was set the other direction. So our rear setback existing is 1 foot, 1 inch. Not 35.
That's to your existing structure that's on the property.
That is correct. The front setback is 18 feet. Yeah, 18 feet, 7 inches, I think. No, sorry, 14 feet, 7 inches.
So
So
that's to the permanent structure, but it's not to the deck, correct?
correct.
The deck is
Yeah,
only
it
8
is
foot
to the
7.
existing structure that says rebuild. So that's the structure that is currently there.
So the deck, oh, I see. The deck is new and proposed.
Correct.
Okay.
So the deck is getting a little bit closer than the existing structure.
The deck is extending further into the setback zone. Yes.
Perhaps you could just illustrate how much of the existing structure are you keeping and how much are you demolishing and rebuilding?
So this was gonna be a rebuild, this little rectangle. This remains, this is widened, so a little bit added. This is existing. To about here. And then that's added. So it's in the books as a 2-bedroom house, and in 1970 something, they turned it into a 1-bedroom house. So we currently have a 1-bedroom house, and we're looking to add a 2nd bedroom. So that's the bottom.
That's the
Right-hand
one,
corner.
the 1-story addition.
Correct. And. yep.
So then the 2-story addition is building above what is currently there, or it's removing what's currently there and rebuilding it 2 stories?
So we consulted someone and the foundation isn't sufficient to support 2 stories, so it will be taken down. The new foundation and then the 2-story.
Gotcha.
So since you're demolishing a fair amount or reconfiguring a fair amount of what was there, had you considered, because I mean, you need to increase the square footage of this house, right? You need more space in this house.
Yes.
So in order to get that extra square footage, had you looked at all at putting these additions within the setbacks, so there's still open property within the setbacks?
There's 2 issues with that.
Yeah.
One is septic,
Yeah,
which
so where is the septic?
the septic is in the front here.
Facing Prospect Avenue.
Correct.
So
And
is it within that 25 feet or is it closer to the house?
I think it's closer to the house. Yeah.
So it's within that setback limitation that could have been a buildable area,
Correct,
but the septic is currently blocking that.
correct.
And then what about on the other side?
That's where the well is?
So the well is on the south side.
Yes.
And sorry, what did you say about, you say that the foundation, what's currently labeled living area, that the foundation was inadequate to take a 2nd story on that?
I'm sure that that is also true, but we did not want to go up in that area, anyway. To try to keep things, the neighborhood in that end of Tuisset is mostly 1-story, to allow people the views of the water from above us. And so we wanted to try to keep this as low profile as possible.
So that was in respect to, you wanted to preserve your neighbor's ability
Correct,
to have a view of the water.
yes.
So obviously in this area, there's a significant concern about the spread of fire, which we've heard time and time again. People come for us to expand their properties, and the proximity to the property line has been of significant concern.
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
In your design, when you taken into account, by moving closer to the property line, it's creating an increased threat of fire. Because the purpose of setbacks is to get the buildings away from one another. And in this particular part of town, there have been numerous issues in the past with the concern about fire spreading from one structure to another, particularly given the lack of a municipal water system in that area.
So the way the neighborhood is laid out in up above the shed, the neighbor is offset to the south. And so we would not be coming in front of him, or, that would be a little bit closer, but not much closer than the shed already is. From the deck across the street is an open lot. So there is no structure on that one. And from the other one where we're coming out with the bedroom, we're well within the side yard setback. But that's 25 feet. So from Dr. Gibbs, we're 25 feet to his property line.
You may have just answered this house. I'm sorry, I was looking at the
Sorry.
pictures, trying to get your bearings. The side of the house where you've got like an inch of a setback.
Yes.
From that shed, how close are you to the next structure on that parcel next to you? You know what I'm asking?
I do know what you're asking. I'm trying to think that, so that's John Hunt's house, and it is, his septic is kind of between the house and the shed, but it's offset. So I think it's gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 feet.
Okay. And again, basically, based on your testimony of where the placement of your septic and well systems are, they kind of squeeze you. So the only way you can do this is kind of long and narrow, correct?
Correct.
Okay. In the past, well, one of the last application or one of the past recent applications we had down in the Twisted area, there had been a willingness by the applicants and then in fact, a requirement by this board that certain fire rated building material be used for this construction. Is that something you might be open to?
I think we would be open to considering that, yeah.
And again, we're not trying to harp on it, but everyone remembers the fire and
Yeah.
there was a real concern who was going to
Yeah.
burn.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
Another sort of concern is particularly on the side with the deck on Shore Drive. The existing building was already non-conforming, right? It was already closer to the street than should have been allowed by the setbacks. Usually when we have a condition like that, we've imposed the requirement that we not make that any worse, that no new construction can go any further than the existing construction. But in this case, your deck, this new deck is now making it even worse than it currently is.
So the issue is, if you go back, there's two doors to this house. One here and the other one's over here currently. There's
Yeah.
no door to the front of that house. And so in order to put a door, because the yard slopes down, we would like to have something there. And the neighbor just to the north has exactly the same layout with exactly the same type of deck. And so it fits very nicely in the neighborhood.
So is that deck area then going to be like kind of the main entrance into the house? I just want to make sure I'm following you.
It would still not be the main entrance to the house. But
It
would
looks like
be
you're going to make turn into a sunroom. Well, the deck would lead to a sunroom.
The living room would lead into the living room.
Okay.
So the area that's labeled rebuild,
Yes,
what is the function of that area?
it was a porch that was closed in.
It's an enclosed porch,
It's now an enclosed porch.
and you're gonna tear that down, and you're gonna rebuild in that area.
That's currently a step down to
Yeah.
that, and the roof lines don't match. And we have, with the wind coming from the southwest, we have difficulties keeping that roof in good shape, so we want to improve that. And so, yes, we're gonna rebuild that porch structure.
And that's what's labeled sunroom on the plan. Right on this, the detailed floor plan.
Yes,
So that's the area that's labeled sunroom.
yes.
Had you discussed with your architects at all whether there was a way to transition from a rebuilt sunroom down onto the lawn with something less substantial than a full deck?
Yes.
Or so a patio, right, a brick
Right.
patio or something that does not count towards the setbacks.
Right,
A raised deck does, but if it's flush with the surface of the ground, that also does not count towards your lot coverage if it's like a brick patio or even concrete patio or whatever. So there could be a way of reducing some of the non-conformity.
the difficulty with that it has been considered, but the difficulty with that again is the slope. I don't know if you have the one with the if we submitted that, the slope, but if you come out, you know, every 12 inches you're going this way, you're going further and further down. So by the time you get down to ground level, you've really run out of room. And so, I mean, we could have the steps down just about to the road.
I mean, you could do some regrading of that area potentially to, I mean, if there was something that happened there, or, you know, do you really need the deck on that side of the sunroom, or could the deck be more off the end? So I'm just having a problem. We're asking for a lot. I mean, you're asking for a lot of changes here, and we're making some things that were already bad even worse
Yeah,
in terms of the setbacks.
yeah. I mean, it just to look across to the north and see my neighbor with the same deck.
Yeah,
I
but
just thought-
your neighbor's property may be differently configured, the deck is already existing, we don't know what the conditions were that led to that deck. It's just that we're going beyond what was already in the setback. Now we're making that setback on that side even less than it already was when it was not conforming. And usually we try to avoid making a setback worse than it was existing. And then, you know, now with these additions over here, you've got more intrusions into the other setbacks than were previously existing.
Yes, if we move the bedroom further down the hill, we move it further into John Hunt's visual field. By tucking it up under, he can see past it. So
What are some other feelings on making the existing non-conforming setbacks less conforming?
I would agree with you, Mr. Chair. I've got a bit of an issue with that. This is a pretty comprehensive renovation. Yeah, I have an issue. I have an issue with the deck. That's my big kind of holdup.
so everything would be all right without
Well,
the deck?
not necessarily. That might be the main.
That's my
concern.
primary concern. Again, we can't, you know, the land is land. I get it. The houses are situated the way they are. We don't want to make things, you know, you're asking us for permission to do something in addition, and I've got a concern with making something that's already non-conforming even more non-conforming.
I still also have a concern about, you said, you know, the well is in that south area, but you know, a wellhead takes up a fairly small amount of space. Do we know, like, where is that wellhead? Is it right in the middle of this area? Could some of this addition be worked in around where the wellhead is? Like, do we have even an approximation of where the wellhead is?
Is that in our materials?
So it's kind of over here. So I mean, in theory, so if the wellhead's where the circle is, basically, there is buildable area here that you could get additional square footage in without impacting the wellhead. So I mean, one thing we try to
So
see if it's
I mean,
possible is
I hear
to
what-
exhaust all your legal buildable area before we start encroaching on setback. Is there any way to use any more of the legally buildable area?
So part of if we come this way again.
Yeah.
If we move this here.
Yeah,
This is John Huntsman. So this view, I come into here, he talked to him about it. Thought about this part of the line, we could move this here. But now
It's
we're
gonna be-
right smack and we're down, taking up a bigger section of his view, in a much less convenient place. So.
Which, I mean, obviously, those are difficult decisions. I think it may be that, you know, if there's a significant concern about the proximity of that to the property line, which is setbacks from a safety standpoint with a fire, does the public safety have to come ahead of impacting someone's view?
Judging from sort of the walkthrough of the area, I am inclined, especially because this site plan, assuming this is in the official submitted stuff, just didn't end up in the packet.
I don't remember seeing that's.
And I
Right,
think
that's a survey.
that was done for the septic, when we had the septic done, and but I'm not sure that that was entered in.
But noticing where the adjacent structure is on the property to the north, or I guess the property to the east, actually.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to say that the distance between the structures doesn't seem to be of a similar proximity to what we were seeing on some of the applications at the tail end of last year. I mean, this seems to be a relatively substantial distance. It's not as if we're within 10 feet of.
What's the scale? Let me look at the scale.
Yeah.
I do.
We have an
I'm
actual
Sandra
picture.
Mercer,
Yeah.
his wife. And I do have photographs. This is the side yard that we're referring to, and that's John Hunt's house.
Mhm.
So if you're looking right here is where the bedroom would come out to here, to this corner. And then, so we've now cleared all the debris, but this is his view right down to the water. So so I'm standing right in front of his, in our yard still, but his house is directly behind me. And so we wanted to be able to get out of the house in the front, and that's what we had asked for a deck, because that's what faced the water and made it. My mother's house is across the street. She can walk up that way and get in. And it just kind of flowed with our mailbox is out the front. And so that was the convenience of that. But that was why we chose to put the bedroom where we did, so that it would not block John. Because of where Dr. Gibbs's house is, there's no, they're all lined up sort of. They're staggered to allow it to move down. So we didn't feel we wanted to come in front. So that's why we asked for, we redid on that to make it be the least.
That makes sense.
And it may be, we come to a point where it's necessary to have a site visit to better understand some of these relationships, to see it sort of in person. Maybe like staked out with caution tape or something on the ground where you're putting these additions to see, how it relates to the property, the slope, the neighboring properties, to get that.
Just another overview of looking down the hill at our house.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm inclined, I think a site visit might be beneficial.
I'll agree with that. Yeah, I agree too, because even putting the house back, you're getting closer to this structure on 4.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a drive by the area, I'm familiar with the area, but I think, having listened to, have some explanation, I think that might be beneficial to see it again and have things worked out.
Mhm.
Right, because normally we're gonna try to tell them to minimize going into the setbacks.
But in this.
In this case, we may be affecting the way the neighborhood's laid out.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I agree, we need to go out there.
To the applicants, well, I guess it's not a question, would you be amenable, but we'd like to do a site visit. Would you be able to, we'll work on scheduling a date, would you be able to mark out with either caution tape or stakes or something, the dimensions of the project? Is that something you'd be able to do?
Yes.
Okay.
We should probably see if there's anybody here.
Yeah, I want to see if
Yeah.
there's any comment in the public. You just want to have a seat for a moment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to offer any comments on this application? No. All right, so you can come back. So there's no one in the public with any pressing concerns at the moment. A site visit would be a public meeting, so anyone from the public is able to attend the site visit. So it may be beneficial if possible if your neighbors are there and can weigh in on, you know, what their perceived impact is of the proximity of the structures versus the layout of the neighborhood and what impacts they think this is going to have for this project. And then we can walk the site and see where the well is located, where the septic field is, and what your encroachments are, and have a better understanding of why there may be a need to be more encroaching into the setbacks than would ordinarily be recommended.
Okay, you want me to make a motion?
Well, so you have to, do you want to ask us to continue this meeting to a future date to the next monthly meeting, such that in the interim, we have a site visit at the property?
Requested it.
Okay, so the applicant's requesting continuance to the March meeting, so between now and then, site visit can be arranged. And we're going to decide on the date of the site visit now. We're not going to have these email chains that go on and on forever.
Shall we use the 6 PM slot before the March meeting?
Or 5:30.
5:30 actually would probably be better. It'll be lighter at 5:30.
Right, when's the time jump forward again?
That would
Oh.
be March 15th.
Ah,
So we're all set then.
I think we'll be past that. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
concerned. If we spend an hour at the site at 6 o'clock, we don't have any time to get back here for the
Yeah.
7 o'clock. So it would Wednesday, March 15th at 5:30 PM be amenable to you to have us come visit your property?
That will be fine.
And that would give you a month to erect stakes and caution tape or whatever it's necessary to clearly outline what you're planning to do.
Okay.
All right, so then is there a motion?
I'll make a motion on application 23-24, Thomas and Sandra, owners and the applicants, 58 Shore Road. To continue the matter to March 15th meeting with a site visit on the same March 15th at 5:15.
5:30?
Oh, 5:30, I thought you said 5:15.
No, so the 15th.
Oh,
Of the month.
5:30, okay, at 5:30.
All right, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
So the matter is continued until the 15th of March, and there'll be a site visit at 5:30.
Right, thank you.
thanks.
I'm gonna ask for a 5-minute recess. Just I have to check something that might be important. proceed here, please. Where are we? All right, so the meeting is back in session. The next matter on the agenda is application 2305. Nathaniel Tarantino, owner and applicant, 12 Terrace Ave, plat 13D, lot 243. Request for a dimensional variance under 3277 to construct an accessory structure with more than the allowable lot coverage in the R10 district. You can just identify yourself, please.
Nathaniel Tarantino, and I live at 12 Terrace Avenue, 02885.
Okay, that's fine. So tell us briefly what sort of accessory structure you'd like to build and why you need dimensional relief for that.
Sure. So we have the hardship of not having enough space for the shed due to compliance with the max lot coverage of the R10 district. And this is due to the existing dwelling on the property taking up 100% of that lot coverage. So I believe we're allowed 20% and the existing dwelling brings us to that 20%. I didn't learn about any of this until I applied for the building permit to build the shed. And then they informed me that I needed to apply for a zoning variance because of the minimum lot coverage. So the house takes up 20%. To my understanding, the driveway is also calculated as a part of the lot coverage.
No, it is not.
Okay, it is not. So in that case, we're only at 20. I believe on the application, I put 25%.
You put 24.78.
Yeah, 0.78.
So the porches and both of these porches are included in the what's labeled main residence. Is it included?
Correct.
No.
Yeah. So in that case, we're at the full 20% coverage and we're seeking an increase of 2% to install a shed in our rear driveway. So the main residence, the front street is to the south. And then we have a back street on the back end of the property. So I kind of have two streets on either side of my property. But the driveway happens to be in the rear. The front is just kind of a bit of gravel and dirt that is in the front of the property there. It's not really a paved driveway. The back one is paved asphalt.
And so what is the function of the shed?
So the function of the shed is going to be to store yard tools and other appendages for the yard. So currently I have to cover things with a tarp, which is not exactly sightly for myself or the neighbors in Laurel Park. So, shovels, rakes, lawnmower, I have a garden, so a lot of pots and things like that. I kind of have to store them all over the yard and just kind of leave them out and cover them with tarps, or I have to bring them in and out of the house, which isn't exactly ideal either. I sometimes have to bring the lawnmower in if it's going to snow or something and keep it in the finished basement. So we're looking to build the shed to kind of contain all of our outside amenities. We have a little table back there with chairs and the lawnmower and other rakes and shovels.
And your shed is going to be compliant with the setback requirements?
Yes, that was a bit of a misunderstanding. Someone in the office helped me cross that out. So for an accessory structure, the setback's only 10 feet. I thought it was the same as the main dwelling. So the driveway is 18 feet long. So we are well away from that.
And your side yard setbacks
Yes, it is.
is more than 10 feet?
Yes, correct.
And to the applicant, the proposed shed size 8 feet by 15 feet. It's your opinion today that is the smallest it could be while still accomplishing all the needs you need it to be.
Yes, correct. I was trying to map out like the size needed for a lawnmower and other things with like an opening door, a sliding door, and this shed I found the door opens outwards, so it gives us enough space to store all the stuff inside rather than other forms of sheds.
Which way will you have the door, on the driveway side or the?
It would face the yard
yard
side.
Face the house?
Yes, sorry, yeah, the house side. So the back of the shed would be on the driveway.
Have you thought of putting a garage there instead of the shed, or just want a shed?
We're just looking for the shed. We didn't put any thought into building like a carport or garage or anything like that.
Am I correct that your neighbors to either side of you also have similar small storage buildings or outbuildings on Fairview, the road to the back?
Sort of. The abutter to the left has a 2-car garage. And the abutter to the right has a 1-car garage, pretty much within 15 feet on either side. Like it would be just 3, a garage right in a row.
And it looks like the shed would be the least non-compliant thing on the property, because it looks like the house is probably already with the set.
The house is certainly non-conforming to both the front and side yard setbacks. How long have you lived there? I've lived there for 3 years. So when I purchased the property, the porches existed, the main residence existed, and the driveway existed. And I didn't do anything. I just recently decided to install the shed, applied for the permit, and then they sent me to here for the zoning board for all the events.
Doesn't he not even need a building permit anymore for the shed?
Yeah, now.
Now you find out.
Yeah.
Better though, because then one of your neighbors could have called you in for enforcement and then you'd be back here anyways.
You know, I mean, I'll just say from, personal experience in driving through the area, this part of Laurel Park, I mean, the parcels are kind of small and there are some, this type of arrangement, whether it's a shed or a garage, you see a number of those in that part of the area. So I think that this is something else certainly that fits in. There's not going to be an outlier.
I think we did something on 26 Terrace. Then we did an extension on the house and then there's another shit on.
We've done something in that
Yes, we did.
vicinity.
Yeah.
It's unique property down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a unique area. Other specific questions? Is there anyone in the public who'd like to offer commentary with regard to this application? No. Do you have any further information you'd like to share with us about your proposed project?
No, Mr. Chair.
This would not take away the ability for him to put a garage instead of a shed in the future.
He'd have to come back.
But he, okay.
This project would be limited to 22% lot coverage, so if he wants to do something else, he'd have to come back.
I think he'd be well within all the setbacks for a garage.
Probably.
Yeah. All right, just to let you know.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if this was approved, you're approved to build this shed.
Correct.
And if you want to do something different in the future, bigger, different shape, different size, whatever, you would come back again.
Gotcha. And yeah, when I applied, I understood the permits to be for 120 square feet. Is it now 200 square feet? Is that what you were referring to? Okay.
Yeah, your shed, I mean, for zoning purposes, you're at 120 square feet, which means it has to be 10 feet away from the property lines. If it was less than that, it'd only have to be 3 feet away from the property line.
Gotcha.
But that has no impact on the lot. I mean, you're over the lot coverage, no matter what the size of the shed is.
Correct.
It is more for the building permit for the current building code. You didn't have to pull a building permit on the shed. That it, other questions for the applicant or discussion? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for application 23-05. Nathaniel Tarantino, owner and applicant, 12 Terrace Avenue, plat map 3D, lot 243, request for a dimensional variance under section 32-77 to construct an accessory structure, basically a shed with more than the allowable lot coverage in an R10 zoning district. As the board finds that it's a hardship due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or structure. It's typical of the area. It's hard to park in the front, and it's hard for the applicant to keep his yard neat with the normal tools, rakes, shovels, lawnmowers, other accessory items to keep a house and yard. It's unique in the characteristic of the lot. It's a long, narrow lot, and the shed is actually, easily accessed by the driveway, which is actually on the other side of the lot, not Terrace Avenue, but Fairview, right?
Correct, Fairview.
It's a hardship that's not the result of any prior action of the applicant. It does not result primarily from the desire to realize any greater financial gain. The applicants lived there for 3 years. And it's time to make the place a little neater. The granting of the variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area. And the request conforms to the purpose and intent of the Warren zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan. On Terrace Avenue, many of the lots are similar to this. We've looked at some of these other properties that are similar with a shed on Fairview or a garage on Fairview. The neighbors have sheds or garages on Fairview as well. So it'd be keeping within the character of the area. And the relief requested is the least relief necessary, being just a shed. When you look at the lot, it increases the lot coverage from 24.78 to 27.1%.
So he amended that, because he counted the driveway. It was 20% currently, and he's going to 22.
22. Or it's a small ask to put the shed on there. And for, it'll be a benefit for the applicant and the neighbors to keep the area nice and neater. If for some reason we didn't grant this small variance, would be a little bit of a hardship for the applicant to keep his lawn equipment and tools in a neat and organized manner. That is it.
Okay,
Anything to add?
any conditions or additions?
I don't think there's any real conditions.
Yeah, and we've noted that the approval is for 22% lot coverage, which applies specifically to the shed. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the motion is passed 5-0. So you have zoning permission to locate this shed.
Good luck. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Next is application 2306. 2 WA Realty LLC owner, Christopher J. Lee applicant. 644 Medicom, plat 13E, lot 6. Request for special use permit under 3251 to allow a breakfast lunch restaurant in the business zoning district. Good evening, if you want to just identify yourselves, please.
Christopher Lee, 7 Juniper Court.
All right,
Holly Lee, also 7 Juniper Court, Bristol, Rhode Island.
okay, and you're the proprietors of this
Correct.
establishment? Matt, do we have on hand the conditions of the Cigar World? Because there may have been some stipulations on how many parking spaces were for him versus the other tenant.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just took a quick peek at the decision that was rendered and also the minutes, the testimony. The only thing in that decision was an expert testimony testified that there was compliance with the current planning ordinance. Therefore, it was not examined and analyzed. And the conditions have to do with the safety and the filters of the business and nothing else in terms of number of parking or any type of conditions related to parking.
And also, I believe that the hours aren't gonna be, they state that they'll be,
Breakfast and lunch.
it's not, they're not gonna, the
We'll be
cigar
closing
world.
2 hours after they open.
Okay,
Correct. Hours operation for the cigar box 10 to 1.
it's gonna be different.
Cigar bar was 10 to 1?
10 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Yeah,
but looking like-
It's
the bar.
It's for lunch cigars.
Yeah.
You know,
smoke cigars at 1 a.m.
Right,
I don't
so,
smoke them at 10 a.m.
give us a description of this cafe or diner that you're gonna have here. Specifically, we want to know, just to check the parking, how many seats are going to be inside for patrons?
Well, I'm assuming I'm gonna have to wait for the fire marshal to give me, occupants. I'm thinking about 30 max.
30.
you know, but I'm thinking about.
That might be a tall order,
I'm
given.
thinking about a counter for 10 and 7 tables.
All right, we'll have to check the parking on that. So supposedly you would want a maximum of 30.
That's just, like you said, we don't have a floor plan completely mapped out yet, so that would have to be, I'd have to talk to the fire marshal about that.
Yeah, because the parking requirements for a restaurant use based on per table, per how many seats you have in the thing, and I think there's some employee requirements as well.
In theory, it's it's one space for every 4 seats or each 4 persons in capacity. So if it's assumed to be 30 people plus staff, we're at 8 or 9 parking spots.
Then there is parking space in the back for employees.
That's big.
Yeah,
So that's-
yeah, so it
I
looks.
did ask the owner of the building, he said we could use that for employee parking.
Yeah.
How many spaces in the back? It's not mapped out for spaces, but it's like, I think it's like a 20 by 30 space just behind that lot. Right, just coming over a tree. It's tough to tell with the tree line.
And it said that the parking could be shared also with the cigar.
Right. I
Wow,
believe there should be a letter in there saying that,
that he's okay with that.
yeah.
All right, so just describe briefly what kind of general business, what sort of cooking equipment you're gonna have.
We're gonna have a 4-foot flat top grill, 2 40-pound fryelators, and a 6-ring burner. That's for equipment that's gonna be it. There'd be a 10-foot exhaust to put in there with the ANSO system and fire system. And then all the health department regulations, hand sinks, 3-base sink.
And then you're gonna have an exhaust hood.
Yep, the extraction system.
Question about the extraction system, is that gonna be protruding from the side of the building? Is it going
It's
out
gonna
of the
go
roof?
right up.
Okay.
Garbage disposal, would you be using the existing dumpster that's on the
I'd
property?
be getting my own dumpster.
Would it be located in the same place as
Yep.
the existing?
What hours would deliveries of your foodstuffs and stores be happening?
Food deliveries as early as possible.
Well, sometimes we need to quantify that.
I mean, I gotta talk to suppliers and give a definite.
Well, I mean, the concern is for adjacent lots here, noise associated with deliveries like slamming of the overhead doors and things. Usually there is a time before which it's not generally allowed.
I was planning on having key drop deliveries in the morning for produce and stuff, so that would be there like between 5 and 6. But that's-
That might be a bit early.
Yeah, because it's residential right behind there, really.
Yeah, you have a full apartment complex back there.
That's the nursing.
Oh, is that, yeah, but.
No, even more.
Yeah. I mean, but we're not talking about like an 18-wheeler backing in there, and we're talking about, a couple Mellows food land boxes.
Yeah, no, we understand. And the same thing goes for like garbage. It's even the same thing on like on Main Street
So you
in
have to
town.
schedule that within the hours that are allowed. Yeah.
That's what I would say, yeah.
Usually we don't go any earlier than 7 o'clock for the first activity that happens on the property.
I guess a good question there is, what are your expected hours of operation?
7 to 12 on Saturday, and then 7 to 2 during the week.
7 to 12 on Saturday. And
7 to 2
2 during the week, and you're not
Closed
open
on
on
Sunday?
Sunday.
Not at the moment.
Well, it's
You have to
it's
put it
not
in
gonna be,
typical.
either you want to be open 7 days a week
We're
or.
not gonna be open 7 days a week.
Okay.
And the only reason we bring it up is that, you don't have to be open 7 days a week, but let's say you only want to do Monday through Saturday, and then like 2 years down the road, you say, you know what, I'm missing out on the Sunday lunch crowd. I want to start, slinging eggs. You'll have to come back in front of us to get permission to be open again on Sunday. So if you think there's a chance in the future, you might.
There is a chance in the future, but right now, the plan is Tuesday through Saturday.
Okay.
Ask for the whole thing.
Ask for the whole thing.
All right.
Because you don't have to use it, but.
And you don't have.
Or you could ask for 6 days a week to be open without specifying which days they are.
I'd rather just go for all 7.
All 7.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, if you were to be open on Sundays. I actually, no, I take it because, if you're busy, the maximum business hours are gonna be really 7 to 2.
7 days a week.
Yeah, 7 days a week. Is that something you'd be okay with?
That's a good idea. Jason. Legal.
And how are you gonna dispose of your oils?
Newport biodiesel.
Okay. And they're gonna you're gonna have a grinder for the waste that's coming out through the dishwasher and all that? Did they bring that up to you?
They have not brought that up to me yet.
Okay,
Grease trap for the three-bay sink was the one that's been brought to my attention.
okay.
So then I think back to the question, deliveries, do we allow for 6:30 a.m. to be the earliest delivery time? So there's at least a 30-minute window prior to having customers in the restaurant when deliveries could be accepted.
Not sure we've ever gone earlier than 7.
My guess is this stuff is being done all the time. Produce and breads are being delivered early in the morning.
Bakeries usually don't deliver after 7 anyway, so. Yeah, I was gonna say, based on where it's on a Medicom, I'm a little more inclined, I'm a little more open to having it be earlier as opposed to in the village on Main Street.
Is the delivery happening in front?
We have Dunkin' Donuts there. you have
I
McDonald's.
haven't gone, it can be either way, I mean, whatever is for me to.
Well, I mean, in the front, it's right up against Medicom, so there's less of a chance of disturbing.
Yeah, we
The
could do
neighbors
that.
that
Like I said, the morning one, I was only gonna have one morning one, it was gonna be key drop, so we can go through either door. The front is where we should go through, then that's where we'll have them go.
I mean, even for the dumpster, I mean, you have a pretty good parking lot buffer there for the tenants in the back,
There's been.
plus trees. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think the dumpster should be picked up before 7.
Yeah, I agree. with
Yeah,
that.
That's out back.
dumpster typically,
Oh, that makes sense.
late morning and,
No earlier than 7 and no later than or 6.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, no one's gonna come pick up a dumpster at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, who knows?
It gets up busy.
Are you adding any signage to the building for this business?
There is a current sign over the front door, I was just gonna.
You're just gonna reface the existing.
Yeah, because if you,
About that.
yeah, if you do want to do any additional signing, that's still be a separate petition to come back.
No, there is a sign by the road that's advertised as the old business that's in the location that we're looking at, would I have to come back?
Not if you just reface
Resign,
that with a new
reface.
sign. If you change its dimensions or anything like that, then yes. But if you're just putting a new sign,
yeah, I'm assuming the existing lighting's gonna stay the same.
What was the previous business there? Was that Blimpie or something?
It was years ago it was, but there was just like a gym or something in there recently. It was
Yeah.
very, very.
There were restaurants years ago in there. I don't.
There was a sandwich
I think
place
there
in
was a
there.
shake shop in there most recently too.
Yeah, there was a bunch of things that.
There was a fish and chip in there 30 years ago.
That's right, on the one on the right, it was.
okay, let's just see. Is there anyone in the public that wants to? Okay, so there's no public comment for this application. And you're fine if this is conditioned upon, approval by building inspector, fire marshal, Department of Health, et cetera.
Yes.
Is there any other information you'd like to add to this?
I think we basically got it all covered.
Are there any other comments or discussion?
Well, the only question mark we kind of had were just the seating, and that only interplays with the parking, but I think if I'm heard, everyone's testimony right, I don't think there'll be an issue because you've got 6 spots dedicated for your, the diner. And then for the 2 hours, unless you've got someone who's dying to smoke a cigar, at 10 a.m., it sounds like there will be adequate parking, even if you're up to your proposed maximum of 30 seats.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I had it played out. I mean, I've been watching the parking lot every day when I drive by it, and there's usually nobody there before 10 a.m.
Yeah. Would you be okay if we set a cap at 30 seats maximum for this place?
Or-
Because I have
Or
a
as
feeling-
approved, or less if approved by.
I have a feeling I'm gonna get.
I don't think you're gonna get 30.
Yeah.
But we can say you have a maximum of 30, or less if approved by.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna.
Yeah.
I don't think you have the square footage to get 30 seats for the fire code.
No, I do have just one question.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I know we were here, I'm so sorry. Just really quick, so I know we're setting the hours 7 to 2, but in the offset, say we wanted to do something offset of those hours, would we need to get a specialized license for that?
What do you want to do?
Like if we opened on a Tuesday night for 3 hours?
Those aren't the hours that are approved. So you need to ask for whatever hours you think,
Okay, well,
You
we
want
did that,
or-
then-
or if you wanted, if you want to do something like that, you have to come back and then we'd have to look at how does that impact the cigar bar? Because the premise of the application is that basically the two businesses are not opening at the same time.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
No, leave it big.
Are you,
I've been opposed to that though, but I think a restaurant, if they wanted to do a special permit for like one night or whatever with the town, they allow that, don't they? For a special event or something like that?
First has to be allowed.
All right,
zoning.
okay.
in it.
Okay. So that's it.
I'd say see how the business goes, and if you
That's
find out,
fine.
come on back.
Process.
are you getting a liquor license for this business? No.
They can go to the cigar next to the restaurant.
Are you doing any
Yeah.
Bloody Marys.
entertainment at this business?
No.
No, it's strictly for eating.
On the entertainment.
Could be something.
I'll be honest with you, are you the cook?
Yeah.
Yeah, in most breakfast houses, the chef is the.
Entertainment.
I've sold many breakfast houses, and it was always the chef that was always behind that grill, just.
Isn't that where you go?
He's like the bar, he's like the barman. Keeps the people coming back.
I hope you're planning on selling something other than eggs, because no one can afford to buy them.
That's why I was laughing at the whole chicken coop thing earlier.
Well, that-
In the hallway.
Put a chicken coop back there?
Let's not sleep, it's fine.
Any other commentary? Is there a motion on this application?
I'll do a motion. Oh, boy. All right. I move approval of application number 23-06 to WA Realty LLC owner Christopher J. Lee, applicant 644 Medicom Avenue, plat map 13E, lot 6. Request for a special use permit under section 3251 to allow a breakfast lunch restaurant in business zoning district. We find that in granting this approval, we find that the special use will be compatible with the neighboring land uses. This stretch of Medicom Avenue is highly commercial. There's been some testimony taken that it's in a commercial building. There's a cigar bar with a liquor license next door. There's a Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's right down the road, and this is certainly something that will be compatible with what's already there. We find the special use will not create a hazard in the neighborhood. Again, there's been testimony taken that there will be appropriate waste and biodiesel remediation measures taken. In that the parking situation will complement and not conflict with the cigar bar next door, mainly in that they will be operating and at non-competing times. There should not be additional parking congestion created. We find that the special use permit will be compatible with the community comprehensive plan. Again, the town of Warren is always interested and excited about new commercial enterprises that bring people into this town and so they can spend their money here. We find the public convenience and welfare will be served. Again, this application is looking to continue a commercial use in a commercial structure, in that the property will be used in a beneficial manner and will not be sitting vacant. As further conditions of the special use permit, we do make the following. Total occupancy for the patrons will exceed no more than 30, and recognize that the total seating number may be less, depending on what the fire marshal has to say. All parking for employees will be done in the back parking area. Hours of operation will be at a maximum 7 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. 7 days a week. No liquor license will be obtained. Food deliveries will occur no earlier than 6:30 in the morning. And the applicant has indicated that he will be procuring a dumpster for this business. And we do make the condition that the dumpster will not be emptied earlier than 7 o'clock p.m. or a.m. Sorry, or anytime after 6 o'clock p.m.
Oh, we have the deliveries have to be in. the front.
Oh, and regarding the deliveries, all deliveries will be made through the front entrance so that we do not back up and block any traffic.
And we'll further condition it that you'll have to abide by the building code, fire code, state of Rhode Island Department of Health, and any other agencies having jurisdiction over this business. Any other conditions? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's the motion is passed 5-0. So you can coordinate with the building and zoning official for when you need to get your building permit, your approvals, health department and everything else that follows. So you
I
can
live in the neighborhood right behind it. Look forward, for breakfast.
All right, we look forward to seeing you.
Now he's got a new spot right up the street.
Thank you very much for being in touch.
Take care.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay. Under administrative matters, first, I'm just going to recognize that a communication was received from the Honorable Stephen J. Fortunato Jr., Associate Justice, Rhode Island Superior Court, retired. The solicitor has weighed in. The essence of the letter is to state his position that the petition 2301 with regards to not allowing more than 1/3 of a setback to be granted for encroachment. Justice Fortunato is of the opinion that since it is in the ordinance, it is in effect, whether or not the solicitor believes that it is contrary to the enabling legislation. Solicitor reiterated his position that it is not effective because he believes it in conflict with the enabling act. So that's part of the record of the hearing. There's nothing else to be done about that at the moment. So the next matter is appointment of a secretary. It's my understanding that Maya has expressed interest in taking on the position. Is that true?
So what do we need, a motion?
Are there any other people? of interest?
Sorry. Nobody else wants it.
I don't think
Ben
so.
volunteers.
I'll make a motion to appoint Meyer as our secretary.
Is there a
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so unanimously, Maya, you've been appointed to be secretary to the board.
Godspeed.
The next matter of administration is we have to elect our officers for this current year. So I'd ask if there are nominations for.
I'll nominate Mr. Ellis.
Second.
I was gonna ask for vice chair first, so I guess I'm.
I'll nominate Barrett for vice chair.
So we have a nomination and a second of Barrett Holby for vice chair. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so unanimously it's passed that Barrett will remain in the position of vice chair.
Thank you.
Are there nominations for the position of chair of the board?
Should be sentence David, since it's not here.
Oh, that would be.
Sure, an
cool.
alternate. can be-
I don't think so.
Barrett, you had a nomination you wanted to make?
For chairman? What was that? Yes, for chairman.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll second that.
Mr. Andrew Ellis.
All right. So the current chair has been renominated and seconded for the position of chair. Are there any other nominations for this position? Not hearing any. All in favor of the nomination?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Congratulations.
I was waiting for him to vote against himself.
So the chair is reelected to that position, unless anyone else has any other administrative matters or matters they'd like to see on the agenda.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
John?
Oh, did we ever hear about the email situation? I missed last month. I don't know if they.
Oh, well, nothing further.
All right, yeah, just.
So the general idea was, is it in the best legal interest of the town that the council approve issuance of town emails for the conducting of zoning board business? or authorized it,
I'll get an answer.
something of that.
No.
I just figured, hey, we'll just ask it. Yeah.
Maya will tell you, I'll get an answer for you next meeting.
I had one other
Yes,
item, because we brought it up tonight. The Wharf Tavern music, we never had,
I don't believe we ever had that revisited.
should we, I haven't heard any complaints, but should we revisit it?
I was over there having a drink over the summer. There was no music at all being played.
Well, you could look back at the decision.
of.
Yeah, if there was a definitive end date, then technically they're outside of compliance if they're having music. There was a date.
We had some,
I think
The
it,
town didn't schedule that, therefore. They enjoyed the right to that. That's just mine.
so we don't, they're good, we don't have to.
I mean, I guess unless we
No, I
want
don't.
to schedule something.
Just wonder if we had to do it again. Just.
If the solicitor thinks, if we took no action, then it's.
The town failed to take action, but they review.
Okay.
And
I think that might have been due to COVID or something.
people.
But so unless we have a specific need to revisit that,
No, I haven't heard any.
I haven't heard any
When we
complaints.
we're talking about the Sunset Clause tonight, it kind of clicked to my
I
head.
haven't heard anyone make any note of any issue. Anything else? All right, so then,
Make the motion. to-
motion is second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.